Hello and welcome to On Europa League playoff first leg. We have a lot of games and a lot of big names. So in Europe, we have Milan, Roma, Benfica, Olympique Marseille. So a lot of good games, good teams, and of course, a good group of tipsters with Dani Fisichella and Alvaro Romeo joining me to analyze all these games. Hello, Dani. Hello, Alvaro. I hope you are ready because we have plenty of good games and very good odds. On Thursday, all the games. So remember, guys, as always, press the like, subscribe. Let's go on with the show. And one of my favorite games is the first one. Very nice one, Feyenoord Roma, with Roma, remember, runners-up of this competition with another manager, with Jose Mourinho, because now, Dani, we have Daniele De Rossi on the bench, and he saw his first defeat on the bench against Inter Milan. They took the lead at one moment, 2-1, but at the end, Inter were much stronger, 2-4. They are very poor in Europe when they travel. It's only 2 wins in the last 11 away games in the Europa League. And Feyenoord, we saw them in the Champions League, and they are a very good team. They were very competitive against Atletico de Madrid, for instance, or Lazio. And the bookies think that Feyenoord is the favorite for this one.
Don't understand why. Probably based on the away record of Roma in Europe. Yes, it's very bad. And also the away record overall this season, only 1 clean sheet in the derby, which is not really an away fixtures. But yes, last season, only 1 away win in Europe in JK. All their 4 away knockout games for Roma, all under 1.5 goals. We invented a new term, la murignata, no? 0-0 away, 1-0 away, and off we go. But that's no longer Mourinho's Roma. The things have changed. Now there is Daniele De Rossi. And Daniele De Rossi is changing Roma. They are going in a different direction. There are some bumps in the roads, but the direction of travel is good. Look, against Inter, everyone thought after 3 wins, Roma would have been a little bit cautious, maybe try to play with one more midfield instead of going with 4 attacking players. No. De Rossi stuck to his principle. Lukaku, Dybala, Pellegrini, El Shaarawy. The first 25 minutes, Inter suffered a lot. I've never seen Sommer so busy. And Roma deservedly went 2-1 ahead after 45 minutes. Unfortunately, as the intensity went down and Roma kept playing in the same way in the second half, Inter better quality emerged, a couple of individual mistakes for Roma, and Inter in the end are the best team in Italy. Probably one of the best teams in Europe. Don't underestimate them. But yes, they were worthy winners, but Roma did really well. They stuck to it. Unfortunately for De Rossi, the 2 big players, Dybala and Lukaku, had a bad day. And so that kind of formation was no longer sustainable. But I don't think we're going to see anymore the Roma parking the bus. If you look at the numbers in Europe this season in the Europa League, they're very bad. Only 5 goal scorers. Belotti, by the way, who scored 3, has moved to Fiorentina, so he's no longer with them. 29 for attacks and 17 for shots on target. We are talking about last year finalists in the competition. They cannot have this number. And I think the numbers underlines the reason why Mourinho was sacked. It was not a good return on investment. It was not a good brand of football. It was way too polemic. It was way too frictious, and things have to change. So maybe De Rossi is going to stay there next season, or maybe not, but he's giving his best shot, and he's playing a football that is much more entertaining. They scored 10 in the last 4. One quick word on Feyenoord. Maybe they are favorites because in the last 3 games, they're Italian teams that never won. Lazio lost twice and Roma lost as well there. So yes, that's probably why. They have been decent in the Champions League, but they lost the last 3, so they really threw it away. Feyenoord, maybe they lack a little bit of experience in the key moments. They got goal scorers for sure, 7 different goal scorers in the Champions League, scoring 5 out of 6. They are firmly second in the table in the Dutch league, unbeaten in 7, 4 consecutive clean sheets. I don't think Roma are going to lose this one. I love the X2, the double chance, 190. These are the last year finalists. Should have won the game if Taylor didn't have a bad day. So
don't tell me these things, please. Don't tell me these things.
Why not?
Because I think that Sevilla could also feel aggravated by some decisions by the referee, but Jose Mourinho, right after the game, he embarked on a cruise to.
But what was the biggest mistake? But what was the biggest mistake of the game?
Let's focus on this game.
The biggest mistake of the game was the handball that wasn't given. That's
By the way, these two teams also met in the conference final 2 years ago. Roma won, and last year, as Dani said, Roma lost in Rotterdam, and they won at the Olímpico 4-1. Alvaro, do you also think Roma's odds are so good to be taken?
I think that Anthony Taylor shouldn't have had such an abuse in the airport, and Jose Mourinho spurred that on. But anyway,
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that they are the last year finalists, inches away from winning it.
Of course, and I'm sure that in the semi-finals and the quarter-finals, Roma never get a decision their way. I mean, I'm sure. I want to see how. Look, Jose Mourinho made it work in Europe. That's for sure for Roma, and I want to see now how they are in the knockouts with Daniele De Rossi, because Jose Mourinho made it work. 2 finals. I don't think Roma is going to reach the final this year, because if you look at the playoffs alone, I think that there are 8 former European champions in these playoffs, and the best teams from the Europa League are still yet to play in the next round, one of them being Bayer Leverkusen. It's not that these sides don't meet, because they are going to meet for the 3rd successive season. I think that the Feyenoord is a very good side, at least at their level in the Eredivisie. And they won 2-0 in the weekend. They got 49 points. I mean, we don't talk about them as potential title winners, because PSV Eindhoven, they're having such a stupendous season that they are clouding and, in a way, darkening what Feyenoord is doing. But it's good. And they've got a striker like Santiago Jimenez, hopefully he will play, who has scored 19 goals this season, even though in the Champions League group stage he couldn't feature a lot, and therefore he couldn't make a difference. Roma, I think that they are favorite for this tie. I don't know about this game. I love the double chance that Daniele underlined before. They score a good amount of goals. They got Lukaku with 9, Dybala with 6 assists. I'm talking about Serie A numbers right now. Paredes to get a yellow if he plays is one of the safe bets, maybe, because he got 11 in the Serie A and he's the player more booked in the Italian league. But I'm going to go for both teams to score. I think that the talent of Roma is unquestionable up front, and Feyenoord, they are scoring a very good amount of goals. So both teams to score 183.
Really good tie, this one. Feyenoord, Roma is still among the favorites to win the competition. According to the bookies, they are the 6th favorite, behind Brighton and West Ham, surprisingly, to be honest. But Roma should have won their group, and I think it was a big mistake falling into this playoff. A tough one against Feyenoord. Next one is Galatasaray. Sparta Prague. Galatasaray, perhaps they have also a good option to have a good season in Europe. They were, I guess, disappointed in the Champions League in the next game, because they could have qualified to the last 16 round, but they lost at the Parken Stadium, and they threw away the good games against Manchester United. They are leaders, Alvaro, in the Turkish league, with Yilmaz scoring a lot of goals. So I think this is full trust on Galatasaray to win this game, 1.79, and to qualify against Sparta Prague.
Yeah, that's my pick very quickly. I mean, Galatasaray is not in a position to relax, because they've got a nail-beating title race with Fenerbahce. So the players are sharp. They are obliged to get the 3 points every single weekend. So I think that that's always good, because it helps the good dynamic of a team having to play for everything every 7 days. And now the Europa League is, I believe that the level that Galatasaray belong to, even though in the Champions League they didn't do too bad, they've got a great quality of players, especially up front. We have spoken about that. They have suffered not many defeats this season, only one in the league to start with. And defensively, Galatasaray is rather composed, I would say, with 14 goals conceded in the league. The Champions League was a different story, but they weren't terrible at all. And when it comes to Sparta Prague, they come a long way. I mean, they played against Copenhagen in the Champions League playoffs to start with. They are probably one of the stories of the Europa League group stage, because they sent Betis to the Europa League playoff, which is a Conference League playoff, sorry, which is quite something. The only thing is that Sparta Prague haven't played competitive football for a little while now. They played their first competitive game of the year last weekend. But this season, they have been pretty decent. At home, the record is excellent this season. But still, I think that Galatasaray has better players. I don't know about the tie. I think that I wouldn't bet on this tie because Sparta Prague, in the next fixture, they can be very good at home. And Galatasaray may suffer a little bit. For this game, I'm going to back them. Galatasaray to win 179.
Funny enough, Alvaro, that you reminded us that Sparta Prague played in the Champions League playoff and they lost to Copenhagen now in the last 16 round of the Champions League, just in the penalty shootout. Dani, do you trust Galatasaray? They are famous for screwing it up in Europe, we have to say.
I'm not sure if I would say I'll trust them fully. I mean, they changed a bit the squad. They sold Boe to Bayern. Angelino went to Roma, Bakumbu. They still remain a very strong squad. Only lost one league game. I think we were expecting them a little bit more from them when they played at home, I guess. But they also did fairly well away. In Europe, 3 wins, 2 draw, 1 defeat to Bayern. One thing for sure, they got goal scorers. 3 players already in double figures. Icardi 18, Akhtaroglu 10, Zaha 10, won the last 7. So they are a scoring side. But careful with Sparta, because the underlying numbers say they are also a very attacking team. They are the team that has attempted and completed more crosses in the Europa League, 6th for attack, 1st for corners. They do score goals. They had a month and a half rest, so they haven't played competitive since mid-December. Away from home, lost 3 games to Dinamo Zagreb, Betis, and Rangers. But to finish top runners-up behind Rangers and ahead of Betis, I think is a great stories. Now, look at the numbers. 7 out of 10 European games of Sparta this season, over 2.5 above to score. Galatasaray, 8 out of 12, over 2.5 above to score. So yeah, everything suggests at least one of these combination should materialize. Both to score, I like it. I don't think it pays enough. I'm going to go for over 2.5 goals, 189.
Next one, Shakhtar Donetsk, Olympique Marseille, and as usual, the bookies underestimate Shakhtar Donetsk. We always say the same. I don't understand why Olympique Marseille, they are the favorites, because Gennaro Gattuso is having a torrid time right now with Olympique Marseille, 8th in the league, and they couldn't even beat Metz, one of the poorest teams in France at the weekend. No wins in 5. Daniel, we saw a good Shakhtar in the Champions League, beating Barcelona, make them suffer in Montjuic. Why not trusting Shakhtar here again?
Maybe there is a bias or 2 biases. One, the bias is that they haven't played, the Ukrainian league has not been as it should have been for the last 2 seasons and a half. And the second bias is because there's been a winter break. So they haven't played competitively since the end of the Champions League. That's 2-month break. The last result was a defeat, 5-3 at Porto. The league will restart in 13 days. They are 4th with 2 games in hand. And maybe with the bookies that look at these data, and we haven't seen many footages of Shakhtar domestic league games. Who has seen a goal scored by Shakhtar in Ukraine recently? I haven't. And, the bookies take these things into account, and they think they're not as good as they used to be. They beat Barcelona. You will say, okay, it doesn't take much to beat Barcelona these days, but they played really well in both games. They should have done better, perhaps, at the Montjuic. They did very well in 5 out of 6 games, really. Apart from the initial defeat against Porto, they really did really, really well. Also against Antwerp, Antwerp, not a great side, but yeah, Shakhtar were much, much better. And this season, they've started signing again foreign players, especially Brazilians. So they're going back, perhaps, to their old best. But, the best team players are the Ukrainian international in the squad. Sikan, only 7 goals so far in the season, but 4 in the Champions Leagues. When it matters, I think he's a good player. And yeah, you mentioned Olympique Marseille, only won 2 of the last 9, 1 clean sheet in 10 in Coupe de France against Aminos. They are 9th in the league. It's very difficult to trust them because in Europe, they've done much better against Metz, 1-1. Metz were coming on the back of 8 consecutive defeats. Yes, Olympique Marseille couldn't beat them. But if you look at the European League, European numbers, Klaassen are 8, 4 assists each. Aubameyang, 5 times goal scorer, so definitely overperformed in Europe. Are they able to gonna do it again? Maybe that's a draw. But yeah, if you go for the Asian handicap plus 0.25 for Shakhtar, you get a good value. 197. If they win, you win. If they draw, you win half a stake.
Aubameyang, top scorer of the competition with 5 goals. They were in the group of death with Brighton or Ajax, Alvaro.
Yeah, and if he scores this Thursday, he will equal Radamel Falcao's Europa League record. Aubameyang is a threat, definitely. But I think that this game is going to be, or this tie is going to be quite open. Olympique Marseille is going to have the ball mainly because they are third in most possession in the French league, and Shakhtar Donetsk, they are rather reactive. But I love what Shakhtar did in the Champions League group stage, and I'm not being here patronizing or anything like that. I'm not going to talk anymore about the difficult time they are enduring. I'm going to talk about their sporting merits. And going into the last game of the Champions League group stage against Porto with the chance to qualify, that was quite something. And I think that they played very well against Barcelona, and I could back them with a double chance, 170, double chance for Shakhtar Donetsk. The draw no bet, 235 is more risky. You know, Edu, that for me 170 is good. Is more than good in most of my bets. And Aubameyang to score is something that has to be flagged out as well. If you want to go for it, I mean, he's scoring a lot of goals. The value will be ready soon. I haven't found it yet, but that will be, if he scores, one of the stories of Thursday. Aubameyang leveling or surpassing the record of Radamel Falcao. So yeah, as I said before, Shakhtar Donetsk with 2 new Brazilians in the squad, signed in winter, with a double chance, 170.
Funnily enough, Aubameyang is not scoring a lot in the French league, but he is finding the net in Europe. Next one is Young Boys Sporting, and here the Portuguese club is favorite even to win. In Switzerland, Young Boys, remember, they were third in their group in the Champions League with Man City, Leipzig, only beating Red Star at home, whereas Sporting with one of the best manager or fancy managers, we have to say, in Europe, Ruben Amorim, even linked with Barcelona, qualified second behind Atalanta, and even at the weekend, Alvaro, we saw them beating 5-0, thrashing 5-0. Braga, 2.0, Sporting to win.
It's good odds. Huh? I'm going to go for an Asian handicap minus 0.25 for them, meaning that if they draw, I will suffer, only have a lose. If they win, I will win. I'm happy with that, 170. Again, Sporting to win, again, 2.0, a great value. They are playing good football. They are in a great form, especially at home. But Young Boys are also in a great form at home. The last time they lost a home game in Switzerland was against Manchester City. But anyway, I'm going to focus on the quality of both squads, and Sporting Club Portugal, they're having a very fine season. You know, they've got good players. Gyökeres is one of the stories of the season in Portugal. Swedish, coming from Coventry, 16 goals in the league. I love Nuno Santos. I always thought that he was a very good player, the left winger or left back, actually a wing back for Ruben Amorim as well. He's been playing so well. And Sporting beat Braga in the weekend. Trincao scored a new centre-back, a new Portuguese centre-back like Eduardo Quaresma scored a goal as well. He's going to be important because Sanjust is out for this game and Quaresma will probably feature. They are in a good moment, and Young Boys has never beaten a Portuguese side in Europe. So I'm going to back Sporting Club Portugal with Asian handicap minus 0.25.
Young Boys, last time they played in Europa League was in 2021. They lost to Ajax. Dani, you also expect them to lose, in this case against Sporting?
I would, yes. I would expect them to lose. I know they're top of the league in Switzerland, 3-3 away the weekend against Lugano, ahead of Servette, who did well against Roma in the Europa League, won 7 of the last 9. They score goals. They score in all the Champions League matches against Manchester City away. But I think Sporting are much better than them. They're going to keep the ball much better. You know, finishing second against Atalanta is a good result still. Atalanta have been flying in Italy recently. And if you look at the stats for Sporting, they're 4th for possession in Europa League, 5th for passing accuracy. These are good numbers. You know, going away from home, they're going to dominate. Top of the league in Portugal, level with Benfica, but they got 1 game in hand. Best attack in Portugal, 58 goals scored, 11 wins in the last 12 matches. In the Europa League, they are unbeaten away from home, but haven't kept a clean sheet. 1-1 in Bergamo, a good result, scoring 12 out of 13 away matches. And yes, of course, Gyökeres is the star man, but Paulinho, Pedro Gonçalves, these are all players in double figures. Sporting Lisbon, Asian handicap minus 0.25, 172. If they draw, you only lose half a stake.
Next game is Milan-Rennes. Milan third favorite to win the Europa League. We have a great Europa League this season, to be honest. Liverpool, Bayer Leverkusen are the two biggest favorites. And then we have Milan in good form. I guess they will focus a lot in this competition. Dani Fisichella, you told us in our Serie A videos that Milan should target this competition because they are going to finish in the top 3 in the Serie A, and they have a big chance to do something big in Europe. They were very competitive last season in the Champions League. Even they got the 3rd spot in the group of death. The only thing is that they've improved massively in this 2024. Is 8 consecutive wins thanks to Stefan. He arrived to the team and he's helping them to achieve good numbers after a tough start this season.
Yes, the change from Genesio really benefited them. Unbeaten in the last 9 games, won 6, and they got 3rd best attack in Ligue 1. But Milan are flying. They won the 6th consecutive Serie A match at the weekend, 1-0 against Napoli. Since December, 10 wins in 14 games in all competition. In Serie A, only Inter has got more points in the last 10 matches, and they're scoring a lot of goals. They average 2.5 goals per game in the last 10 games. And yes, as you mentioned, they got 13 points lead on Bologna, who are 5th. And underestimating the Europa League would be such a big mistake for Milan because they went out of the title race in Italy fairly too soon, but perhaps they don't have the squad to compete with Inter. But winning or getting to a final of UEFA Europa League would be still a good season for Milan, who will be knocked out of Coppa Italia. And by the way, they never won the UEFA Cup, never won the Europa League. So this is a good chance. Of course, the road is very long, but this is a tie they can manage very well if they become more clinical in front of goals. In the Champions League, that's what they paid. They were not clinical enough. They had 19-5 attempts. Only 4 teams had more attempts than them, but they only scored 5 times, and that's the worst expected goal difference, minus 4.9 in the competition. So they should have scored at least 4 or 5 goals more, or at least 3, and that probably would have seen them qualify, because that would have seen them winning that game against Newcastle. First time they ever met in Europe, Milan and Rennes. I think you have to take into account the Rennes away are good. They won at Le Havre, Lyon, Sochaux, Guingamp, Clermont, but also in Europa League they won away in Athens and Haifa. Not Milan caliber, of course, but they could trouble Milan defeat, who only kept Milan defense only kept 1 clean sheet in the last 6. I think Milan gonna win it. Asian handicap -1 for Milan is very good. Over 2.5 goals is my favorite one. Is a bit safer, 190.
A bit unlucky, Rennes, Alvaro, because they lost to Villarreal, also due to that awkward goal disallowed, because it was a free kick. It hit the bar and then it came back to the shooter, and that's not allowed in football. But we don't see this pretty often, and now they face big favorites. And even if Rennes form is okay away, usually they are bad. Actually, they are much stronger when they play in Rossum Park.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to back Milan to win. Pace 167 for me is about right. I can understand why right now they are the 3rd favorite to win the competition. Liverpool, Bayer Leverkusen, Milan sounds about right to me. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe Benfica can be at the level of AC Milan. Roughly. But yeah, it makes sense to me. They're not having such a bad season, Milan. At the end of the day, they have their best point tally at this stage of the season for 20 years. They won the Scudetto a couple of years ago, and they didn't have such a good point tally at this stage of the season. The thing is that Inter has accelerated, and they are the runaway title winners, pretty much. Let's see how it goes, but it looks like that. Let's see what Juve does on Monday. I was prone to back AC Milan with a clean sheet because it pays a lot 240. And in the Champions League, they recorded, for example, a clean sheet against Newcastle United at home as well. But Daniele has deterred me from doing that with that thing he said about 1 clean sheet in the last 5. But it's true that if you check the wider angle, the bigger picture, in 32 games that Milan has played this season, they got 11 clean sheets, which is not bad. So that for you to know, 240 is the money you will get for that. But I prefer AC Milan to win. 167 is not going to be so easy. Rennes in the group stage of the Europa League, they did 12 points. They are 9 games unbeaten in all competition, 5 straight wins in the league. And, the likes of Terrier, Kalimuendo, Bugui, God, they are scoring goals in that run. So, yeah, let's see how it goes. But Milan has better players, so I think that they will win this game.
Even if Rafael Leao is not shining that much, Dani?
He's given assist yesterday to Theo Hernandez, but he missed an open goal opportunity. He needs to be more clinical. That's the thing. He needs to be more. That's what he said as well. If I was more clinical, I would be as good as Haaland and Mbappe. All right, up to you then. I'll do it. I'll do it.
You put the standard really.
Very confident man.
If I was more beautiful, I will marry, I don't know, Claudia Schiffer, but I'm not. So not much I can do.
Of course, you have to be confident in yourself. Well, one of the favorites, according to Alvaro, to win the competition is next. Benfica against Toulouse. This should be an easy one. Toulouse is a pretty bad team, we have to say that. Very poor. This season in France, they are fighting to avoid relegation. Remember that they are here because they won the Coupe de France, but this season they are having a really bad time. Lost to Nantes at the weekend. The best thing they've done so far this season was beating Liverpool at home in the Europa League, Alvaro, but Benfica was also pretty disappointing in the group stages of the Champions League, especially because they conceded so many goals.
They did. By the way, I want to remark something about Claudia Schiffer. The fact that Daniele, you and I will choose Claudia Schiffer as the ideal wife says how old we are.
Yes.
I said Angelina Jolie, by the way.
So, okay. In fact, I think let me check 1 second. You continue. I check 1 second about Claudia Schiffer.
All right. I will go on. Yeah, I think that Benfica is the favorite.
She's 53. She's 53. Look,
53.
I will be.
We are in the.
I will be delighted. Anyway.
Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Benfica to win is around 150, 140 something. The bookies consider them strong favorites to win this game at the Estadio da Luz. I can see why. Benfica has improved since the Champions League early exit. They top the league. They are leveled with Lisbon, even though Lisbon has a game in hand. A few players are offering a very good level. One of them, Angel Di Maria, in the weekend, he passed the ball to Rafa Silva with a lovely trivela, and Rafa Silva scored as well. The Portuguese little magician, Rafa Silva, the master of the counterattacks, is a player that I always flag in this show because he decided not to play for the Portuguese national team anymore at the age of 28, which was a bit odd anyway, but he is very good for Benfica and he pulls the strings in there, 9 goals and 9 assists for him. I think that Benfica is far from perfect anyway, 2 old in the weekend, and despite having played 26 minutes with one more player, but Cabral at the end saved the point for them. And when it comes to Toulouse, I read this and that baffled me a little bit. It's the first time they are in the knockouts of a UEFA competition. I thought that Toulouse had a little bit of a more pedigree in Europe. They beat Liverpool, we have to say that, one of the few sides to do that this season in the Europa League group stage, but it was very different. A very different time, a very different Liverpool. And Dalinga, for example, is one of the players that I will flag out. Hopefully he will play. He has scored 7 league goals in a rather average, if not poor, season for Toulouse. But anyway, Benfica to win the second half will be my bet. My bet here. That pays 171.
Do you expect, Dani, a crazy game as crazy as the one we saw Benfica Inter, for instance, in the Champions League with plenty of goals?
It might be, but most of them coming from Benfica. I mean, they've been strong at home. They only lost 1 game domestically. Fairly decent record, 14 goals conceded in 21 games in La Liga. Portugal drew 2-2 at the weekend. It's a team that strengthened a bit in January with a couple of signings. yeah, there's been a bit of a clear out as well. Out went Jurasek, Verissimo, Peter Musa. But, since 29 November, signs that things went all right, but they've changed a bit. And now, Marcos Leonardo went in, a couple of young Argentinians, a bit of fresh blood there. Since the 29 November, since that crazy 3-3 with Inter, they kept 6 clean sheets. I think Roger Smith stayed in the ships a little bit. And I think if you look at the numbers, they got enough goal scorers in the side to see out Toulouse easily. Di Maria, 11 goals. João Mario, 9 goals. Rafa Silva, 14 goals. Cabral, 9 goals. Toulouse, 14 in the league. Only 4 wins this season. Lost to home to one at home to Nantes. And they're only 1 point above Lorient in 17th place. They're not going to win the cup again this season. They are really, really in trouble. Look at the underlying stats in the Europa League. 25th for passes completed, 19 for shots on target. So a team that plays a lot on the counter, and they've been clinical. Only 2 clean sheets in the last 8 for the team in purple. Benfica to win 2-0, 2-20. 2-0, again, that will be the result. Benfica 2, Toulouse 0. So win 2-0 for Benfica 2-20. That's my best one.
One of the weakest teams in this Europa League, Toulouse against Benfica. And we have another Portuguese side, Braga. They were even luckier in the draw because they got themselves Karabakh. Karabakh, they are here because they were second in the group behind Leverkusen. Okay, this is okay, but remember that they played against Haken and Molde, a very weak group, Dani, but Braga, they were smashed at the weekend. 5-0 against Sporting, even though they showed a good competitive spirit in the Champions League with Real Madrid, Napoli, and Union Berlin.
I think against Napoli at home, they were unlucky. They hit the post. The goal for Napoli was an own goal. I think the draw would have been a fairer result. Against Union Berlin, it was a good draw. Competitive against Real Madrid, at least at the Stadio d'Arucha. They have 5 goals in the Champions League, both Diallo and Bruma, if you look also at the qualifying stages. And, these are good goal scorers. There is always Ricardo, André Horta, 2 players that often come alive in European nights. I see them favorite. They are 4th in the league. Yes, they lost 5-0 to Sporting. They scored 2 goals less than Benfica. So they got a good attack in Serie League, but in defense is the problem. 10th defense in Portugal. There are only 18 teams in Portugal, so you got a 10 defense. Something is not right there. But against Karabakh, which couldn't say, I try to not sit on the fence too much. I think they're going to win the league in Azerbaijan. They got 17 points lead. I think they're going to win it, okay? Do 3-3 at home at the weekend. Only 2 clean sheets away from home at Olimpia Ljubljana and Molde. They needed a stoppage time goal in Molde to qualify. Remember, they managed to finish second despite a negative goal difference. They conceded 5 against Leverkusen. I think Karabakh away from home really should be a pushover almost for Braga, but they are unpredictable, and Braga defense doesn't convince me too much. Both to score, 2-1.
They are still playing, by the way, the Azerbaijan League during winter time.
No, they are still playing it. Yes, although the team second in the table got like 2 or 3 games in hand. It's a little bit complicated, the Azerbaijan League.
How is the Azerbaijan League, Alvaro? Is Karabakh performing well these days there?
Yeah, very well.
Well, I would say that in the weekend they found it difficult. Yes, 3-all. I would say that Karabakh away from home in Europe haven't had or haven't made many statements. But I remember that about 14 or 15 months times ago, they recorded a very remarkable win against Olympiacos, 3-0 away in Athens at Piraeus. But, generally speaking, I think that Braga is the favorite, but I think that the odds are disproportionate because, I can see Benfica against Toulouse. I can see why it's 140 something, even though I think that one is not adjusted enough. In my opinion, 160 would have been fairer. But Braga 140 to beat this game or to win this game, maybe it's too much because Daniele pointed at something which is very important, which is the defensive record of Braga. If you look at Porto, if you look at Benfica, if you look at the Sporting Club of Portugal, they all have conceded less than 20 goals in the league, whereas Braga has conceded already 32. I mean, that is the main difference, and that is why they are far away from the title race. They got good players up front, that's for sure. And Karabakh, I can see that they can score goals as well. So both teams to score will be my favorite one here. I think the money is good enough, 2.0. I think that Braga has interesting players up front. Álvaro Diallo is one that I follow very closely because he could be a potential footballer for Athletic Club Bilbao because he has played in the Basque football pyramid and he lived in Basauri, which is not far from Bilbao, where I am from. But yeah, Braga, both teams to score against Karabakh.
Quite lucky, the Portuguese side, we have to say, in the draw. Our brothers, they got the young boys, Toulouse and Karabakh, probably the three weakest teams in these playoffs. And we still have one more game to analyze, is Lens. Freiburg, Lens, they were very good at home in the Champions League. Remember that they even beat Sevilla or Arsenal at the Volaert. They are favorites. Against Freiburg, much weaker than last season. Alvaro, 7th in Germany, 3 consecutive defeats. The last one 3-0 against Dortmund, especially because this season they are conceded a lot. Last season, key to success was keeping clean sheets, and this season is not the case.
Yeah, well, they have had a few injuries that they will take into this game. But yeah, I agree with you. In fact, Freiburg, I say they in the group stage, and I will repeat it now. I mean, they've got overall very contradictory numbers because if we take the Europa League alone, we can say that Freiburg has been a very prolific side. They have scored an average of 2.9 goals per game in the group of death, which is good. But if we take the Bundesliga numbers, they are the lowest scoring side from the top half of the table. They have scored only 26 goals, which in Germany is not a lot because it's a high scoring league. They lost 3-0 to Dortmund in the weekend. And they are playing against Lens. Lens has been decent this season. They beat Strasbourg 3-1 in the weekend. They have accumulated already 3 straight wins in the league, even though in home games against the likes of PSG or even against Monaco in the Coupe de France, they have suffered or they haven't been able to win. Against Monaco, they lost in the extra time or penalties. I'm not too sure about that now, but they did lose, definitely. But still, I think Lens is a slightly favorite, but I think that it's not going to be that straightforward. So I'm going to back Freiburg with an Eisen handicap plus 0.75. That pays 184.
All right. You think this is going to be a competitive one despite the good numbers for Lens at home in the Champions League? Remember, beating Sevilla, Arsenal and drawing with PSV. Dani, what do you think?
I think this is going to be the great surprise, probably Freiburg. They show us in Europa League a complete different face from what Alvaro rightly said in the league. They score 17 goals in the Europa League, same as Liverpool, and they are 4th for attempts, 3rd for attacks. So they're going to go out with a lot of confidence, knowing with good players, the like of Salah, Ritsu Doan, coming back from the Asian Cup of Nations, they do have enough probably to hurt teams at their level. And I think Lens are at their level. Of course, Lens have been very solid at home. Last season, they only lost 1 game. This season, they only lost twice to Metz and PSG. And they've done really well in the Champions League against teams of bigger experience. And it was the first participation after, I don't know, so many years, more than 20 years. But I think Freiburg are going to go there with confidence. And Lens is a team that at home often scores more than 1 goal. Won 3-1 against Strasbourg. They are 6th, but level with Lille and Monaco just because of the goal difference. They got decent defensive numbers. They only lost 2 of the last 10. And I think, again, Lens could be one of the dark horses that could target this competition and build a little bit of experience, which will come handy if next season they are again in the Champions League. I can see goals here, over 2.5 goals, 201.
I'm curious to see the level of French teams in this round because I think the French league has been very poor this season. The Ligue 1, especially the top teams.
But there is another one. There is another things to consider. Now we're talking a lot about reform of football, changes in football. Ligue 1 last summer or 2 years ago, well, decided that from this summer, the number of teams had to go down to 18 to help the teams compete in Europe. And this is the moment when we will see it, because they would have played less games, of course, compared to the Italians, the German, the English. And if they come good, then maybe that's the way to go. I know in Italy, they're talking exactly about the same things, 18 teams, perhaps even less.
Let's see it. In this round, it's going to be key to know if they are competitive or not in Europe. Well, Dani, your safe bet then for these 8 games?
Benfica will beat Karabakh, and I think they're going to beat them soundly. So I'm going to go Benfica Asia handicap -161.
Of course, after analyzing the Azerbaijan league, it's pretty safe to say that the Benfica should win.
Benfica plays against Toulouse, guys.
Oh yes, of course.
It's Braga, Karabakh.
Yes, Braga, Karabakh. Yeah, got it wrong. So it is Benfica to lose, but anyway, yeah, that was my safe bet. Anyway, Benfica to beat Toulouse.
Your safe bet is Braga to beat Karabakh.
No. My safe bet is Benfica. Still stays with Benfica. I just made a mistake. I got Braga, Benfica. Benfica -161. Benfica to lose, of course.
Okay, the odds are the same, by the way. Benfica to win at home and Braga to win at home.
Yeah.
Alvaro, good point, by the way.
My safe bet will be Feyenoord Roma over 2 goals, 150.
Yeah.
And the ACCA, Dani? Alvaro?
Yeah, it will be Feyenoord Roma over 2 goals, AC Milan to win, Benfica to win. Total 350. Not a lot, but I hope I make it.
Dani?
Feyenoord Roma both to score, Milan to win, and Lens Freiburg over 2.5 goals, 628 the total odds.
Higher odds for Dani's ACCA. Thank you. Very good Europa League. We are going to have this year with a lot of videos in Oddspedia, of course. So if you enjoy them, press the like and see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
See you.